This episode of the Cost of Living Abroad podcast is brought to you by Safety Wing Nomad Insurance. Today we're asking, why are so many expats moving to Da Nang, Vietnam for a better life? Is it still worth it in 2025? And how hard is it really to open a bar or business here? Stick around to hear the real cost of starting fresh abroad, straight from two guys who actually did it, Will and Cyril, the owners of Patio Bar Da Nang. What's up? Welcome to Cost of Living Abroad. I'm Evan.
What's up, man? Will.
Hey.
Cyril,
thanks so much. Thanks for having me at your new business, the Patio. I'm pretty pumped to be here. How did you start the business? How do you make money abroad? What is the Patio?
I was at the origin of this project. I've been in F&B for 20 years and I traveled a little bit everywhere. I was in Saigon and I used to run a bar called The Notorious. I decided to make a move to Da Nang, sold my business in Ho Chi Minh and came over here, gave a call to Will. And I knew he was interested in starting something over here, and we decided to go for it. The move was kind of scene. Moving from Ho Chi Minh, that is a big city, busy 24 hours 7. Coming to here was looking for a more relaxed kind of lifestyle, a bit more close to nature, and you got the sea, you got the mountains, the weather is beautiful. That's what motivated me in the first place. Opening a restaurant or a bar over here was just the natural thing to do for me. It's what I know how to, that's what I know to do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I remember, you guys know too, obviously, I started my Vietnam journey like in Saigon before I came here, and I originally met you, Pham Viet Cham, which is like, I don't know if it's a hipster area, but it's certainly like one of the cooler going out areas. Yeah, absolutely. One of the sort of expat hotspots going out areas. And that's where your original bar, Notorious, was. I've also made that parallel move to Da Nang for some of the reasons you talked about, but I guess for so many people, the turnoff or maybe the drawback of coming to Da Nang is that it's very hard as an expat or a foreigner to find any kind of in-person work, right? The vast majority of expats here are like me, they're working online in some ways. The audience, the people watching would be really curious about your process of doing that, of opening a brick and mortar in-person business, like the nuts and bolts stuff, all those challenges.
Before coming to Vietnam, I did my research on the internet. I was looking for a place where a foreigner could open a company. What I've got from the net was there were two places where you could do everything by yourself, Vietnam and Costa Rica. My choice was easily made. I lived in Asia before. I lived in Taiwan for 7 years. And I really enjoyed it. I came back here, a different country, Vietnam. In Vietnam, very easy for a foreigner to open a company.
So, yeah, well, I think of it as being very like pro business, right? Like the sort of obstacles to entry in business here are very low, which I think it's a misnomer. Most people think the opposite. I think Vietnam is very, maybe because of the sort of taboo or whatever of it being communist or run by the communist parties, but it's actually super pro business, right? Like people, it's entrepreneurial economy. It's a startup economy. It's a hustle culture. So why don't you explain some of the real, like the pros or what it was that drew you into Vietnam as opposed to Costa Rica?
Too many Americans in Costa Rica.
Well,
and then he picks up an American business partner.
And to be frank, I haven't been to Costa Rica. I've spent a lot of time in Central America and Mexico, but it's more expensive than here too, cost of living wise.
For sure. And the growing costs are, it's getting exponentially more expensive daily, whereas here it's a much more gradual incline.
So what was the process of setting up the business? How long did it take? What was the paperwork like, the bureaucracy, all that stuff?
If you get help and that's how you should do. It's not that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
The process takes a couple of months. Open a company over here. It's pretty straightforward. And if you got the right partner that will help you, that will lead you in the right direction, it's not really complicated.
So do you have like a silent Vietnamese partner in the business, or did you just like use a sort of service?
You got companies that are gonna help foreigners to set up their business here, and that's what I did. I don't have a local partner.
Beautiful.
It's a 100% foreign-owned company. But I couldn't do everything by myself. The administration here is pretty tense. There's a lot of paperwork to be done. Everything is in Vietnamese. When you go into administrative buildings, you need someone who can help you communicate with them. So yes, you need local help. for all these different paperwork.
I use Safety Wing's Essential Plan every time I travel around Southeast Asia. You need a plan if something goes wrong while you're in Southeast Asia and living abroad. Safety Wing's Nomad insurance covers you in over 180 countries. We're talking about hospital stays, travel delays, meds, evacuations, even repatriation to your home country. It's all there in the fine print, and it starts at just $56 every 4 weeks. Use the link below pinned in the comments or at the top of the description, or just click and capture this QR code over my shoulder. What about the startup costs? Like, obviously, what part of France are you from originally?
South of France. I'm from Antibes.
Okay, so you're from like down in the Mediterranean part. Beautiful. Well, that makes sense maybe that you've ended up here and not in Saigon.
Chasing the good weather.
Yeah. What about the startup costs relative to France? How much more affordable do you think it is, or know it is, to open a business in a place like Da Nang?
It's at least half the cost,
Mm-hmm.
at least the very least. Yeah.
Only half?
It's not very difficult to open a small thing over here. You don't need that much for building work, furniture, or rents. All these expenses are much lower than it would be in France.
There's also a longer grace period for a lot of them. I mean, getting the business license, food certificates, and all that doesn't have to be set up in the same preemptive way that you need to in a lot of the Western world, like where I'm from, California, where just the business license alone is going to take you months and months before you're allowed to open. Whereas out here, like you said, it's made for entrepreneurs, or at least really, really helpful and incentivizing towards entrepreneurs. So they'll let you open up and process all those things as you're opening, which helps a lot.
Why did you guys leave home? Like, what was the impetus or the sort of catalyst for you to leave the south of France and to come to somewhere like Vietnam to live?
I'm a traveler. I started traveling very early. I lived in 4 different countries so far. So when I was 19, I moved to Australia for a few years. After Australia, I moved to England. After England, I moved to Taiwan, and now I'm in Vietnam. And the last 20 years, I spent them outside France. I like living in a foreign country. I like being a foreigner in a strange place. A very different approach to life. It's a very different way of living. We feel more free. Yeah, I say free like this. Back home, there's a lot of convention. People expect you to live your life a certain way, rather than in a foreign country, you like a free electrons. People don't really expect from you to live your life.
To live up to this cultural norm or that cultural norm.
Yeah, you don't need to live up to others' expectation. You're a foreigner, so it's normal that you're different, and people accept you like that.
Yeah, I think about especially in terms of the cost of living, the whole, like back home, the idea of keeping up with the Joneses. I don't know what the French equivalent is, but you certainly know it. This idea of like, the more you earn, the more you spend. So what about you? Why did you leave California?
I mean, I also have always been really into traveling. Less living in other countries, but more just, when I was in my 20s, I was doing backpacking and things like that. 30s as well, I suppose. And I came out here originally because I had a seasonal job for years in the U.S. that afforded me a few months off every year. This is a beautiful place that I had some friends love to come visit, especially during the cold winter time back in the States, or colder winter time. Eventually, I decided it was time to make the move. So I was tired of the rising costs and everything in California. There's plenty of like social political reasons as well that, we're incentivizing to take off. Kind of been on my mind for a long time.
And when did you first, not even permanently, but just when did you first come to Vietnam?
First came out here in like 2010, I believe.
It's almost 15 years ago.
Yeah.
How has it changed? Like, it's such a rapidly developing country. I feel like I've seen more change in my 6 years here than in some of the other countries I lived in for decades or for much longer. Like, what's it been like since you got here 15 years ago?
I mean, I remember the first stoplight in Saigon going, and now you go to Saigon and it's traffic lights everywhere, right? I mean, it's changed a lot, but in a really progressive way. I'd say like of all the countries I've been to in my life, there's been a fair amount, 30 or 40, and spend time in. There's been far more of like co-assimilative kind of change and growth here versus a lot of other places. It's not tourism-based economy, even though there's plenty of tourism. You don't run into the same things you run into even Costa Rica, let alone Thailand and places like that, where it's such a tourism-based economy that kind of steers how growth goes. Whereas in Vietnam, like it grew in a far more, Western influence, but organic, assimilated kind of a way. At least it feels like to me. And like the art scene, the food scene, the beer scene, like the craft beer scene, all those different things I've seen like really, really grow in a progressive way over the last 15 years. And a really attractive and like young, driven one.
Yeah, it has the vibrancy and definitely the energy of like youth in a way that like back home in the West feels old. Like, and I don't mind it, right? Like all of us are sort of above or over the median age in Vietnam. Whereas if we go home, even though all of us have a little bit of white hair, we're probably younger than the average American or Canadian or Frenchman. How long have you been in Vietnam?
8 years.
8 years. And so coming from, I don't know if you came direct or not, but I've spent a good amount of time in Taiwan, around Taipei too. Taipei is so much more advanced, so much more Western. Like the infrastructure is so built up, right? The first time I landed in Taipei, I'm like, oh, this is a fully realized city, right? Whereas Vietnam is, in a lot of ways, feels in transition. So what did you feel like were the benefits of coming to Vietnam?
I agree with what you just said. I remember in Taiwan, one of my friends came here for a week vacation. And when he came back, he said, oh, Vietnam is incredible. It's like Taiwan 15 years ago. I think they're heading in the right direction. But yes, Vietnam is 10 years before. So it's very dynamic. We can see things building and destroying, building again. You got new places opening every month, others closing. It's very dynamic, it's very quick, and people are going to choose in one place to reopen in a different location. It's always in movement.
It makes me think of like the sort of like the speed or the velocity too. And I think this would be probably surprising to a lot of people watching. How long did it take you from, the moment you landed in Da Nang and started looking for a location for this business to like opening the door and pouring a drink?
6 months.
6 months.
And I took my time.
Yeah.
It could have been a lot faster.
We intentionally were nice and slow about it. And even then, that's quicker than it's going to happen in most of the Western.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in Toronto, in Canada, spend minimum a year dealing with red tape and, basic stuff before you even had like a building instructor come in and like examine your bathrooms or your wheelchair accessibility, etc. Can you walk me through like the timeline of like, I think there are people out there who are really curious about what would it be like to move to Vietnam and to do this, to open up a sort of dream business 100 meters from the beach.
I arrived in Da Nang and I didn't start looking for a location straight away. First of all, I wanted to discover the city, see if I liked it more. So let's say the first month, I just cruise around, visit the city, go to the beach, go to the mountains, enjoy life, and realized I would really love staying here. Looking for a place was quite quick because I don't believe you should be looking over and over and over again for the perfect spots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you make it perfect. Yeah, you find a place with potential and then you transform it. It didn't take me a long time. I think I saw maybe 3 or 4 different places before deciding, okay,
Yeah, we
this
saw
is
4
the one I
spots.
want. You need to be quick as well. You don't really have a lot of time to think about it because you got other people around that are interested in the same place. So it's really, you feel it with your gut, and if it's right, it's right. Maybe after a couple of months, 2 months, 3 months, we found this place. We made an offer very quickly. Several people were on it, so we had to battle a little bit and insist and show that we were motivated. And then everything happened very quickly.
I mean, it's like you said about the culture. Everything's so fluid and dynamic, and it's kind of the way the business starting and even finding a place goes as well. It's like you said, like, you can't sleep on a place for a week and make a decision. Like, it'll be gone. Everything's too fluid, too quick, too dynamic here. So once we kind of made the decision to jump on it and officially do it, ball got rolling really quick.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, how long was it from like the moment did you have a Vietnamese real estate agent presumably you're working with?
Talked to some real estate agents, but most of the places, we went back and forth. This place we just kind of found outside of like the whole realm of people we've been talking to and been searching through, and it just kind of came up, out of nowhere, and we jumped on it.
Like on a Facebook page, or like literally
Yeah,
on a Facebook,
literally
yeah.
on a
So
Facebook page.
this is something I say to my audience a lot: is until you get to Vietnam, it's like Facebook obviously has global saturation, but you will not realize how much you'll rely on it to like social groups, marketplace, rent, everything.
It is the
Facebook,
marketplace.
it is the marketplace of
Yeah,
Vietnam.
Or even walking around. Walking around is actually one of the best way to find a place. Real estates are little agents, are a bit complicated to work with because they're trying to sell their products. They're not really listening to what you want. The best is to do things by yourself. There are websites, and there's one called Shotot. People will put ads on the property they want to rent. That's a good way of finding a place because there's no middleman.
Yeah, you
So
talk
you
to direct
really
owner.
have the whole market under your
Yeah.
eyes, under a click, and it's easy to make a choice. Then you have a phone number, you give a call, you visit the place. So, or just walking around in Vietnam, places that need to be rented, you often got a sign on the wall, a phone number. Usually, one of the best way to find a place. That's how I found my spot in Ho Chi Minh when I opened a bar. It's just by walking down the street and see a place with the sign for rent.
Yeah. I mean, when we first moved here in An Bang, it was a real estate agent that helped us find what was really more of like a vacation or holiday property out there at the beach. But then when we found the house, we're now permanently in Da Nang. I just did that. I just drove snakes up and down the streets on my motorcycle, and I had more of an idea after a couple months of what I was looking for.
It's kind of that old school way pre-Airbnb that most of us travelers figured out how to live places or stay places across the world. Is you show up for a night or two at the hotel and then go knocking on doors and searching around town.
Yeah.
And most of that's not really available in the world anymore, especially even for housing.
Yeah.
And out here, it's still perhaps the best, or at least on par with the best way to go about things.
I'm going to pitch my own product here too. So I do like course teaching people how to, help them literally move, live abroad, like you guys have, like I have. In the guide I have on like where to find a place to stay, where to find a place to live, how to rent, how to buy. I also have that website, chotat.vn, linked. It's in there, and it truly is it can be a game changer, I think, because you do get to deal direct with landlords or with owners of properties and cut out agents.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, it fulfills the same purpose that Facebook does. It's not as broad across not all the foreigners are using it. So it's not quite, as universally known about in Vietnam as Facebook is, but it's also a little bit more thorough than Facebook.
Okay.
Like my apartment right now, I found via Facebook, but most of the places in the last few years that I've lived at, I found via Chotat, including my motorbikes, my homes, my everything.
Yeah.
It's a really good reason.
So once you signed the lease, once you had the place, it was yours. How long for the build out? How long to open the door? How do you find contractors?
About 3 months. But even then, once again, we took our time intentionally. We know that we had a good setup. We know when the tourism was about to start up a little bit more. We had a fairly relatively cheap cost getting into the whole thing. So we really wanted to make sure we did it right, really had our plan, worked out what it is we wanted to do before we opened the doors. So honestly, we probably could have opened the doors weeks earlier, but we just wanted to get it really right. So it took us about 3 months before we opened.
And did you guys do the build out? Did you do it with a contractor?
We didn't do a lot of building work in that sense. We didn't build walls, demolish some part of the buildings, and remodel the place. It was purely decoration. So that was quite easy for us. We change a bit the painting, we change a bit the furniture around.
Some new appliances.
We got lucky because very quickly when we arrived in Da Nang, we managed to meet people working in this industry, and they were really helpful. Electricians or furniture shop, second hands for kitchen equipment and all this. Yeah, we quickly got some address, some places to go to. So it wasn't really a problem. Then it's needs to be looking for suppliers and things like that. It's the same through contact. We got hooked with all these people. So everything came quite natural. We didn't struggle in finding all these people. The community, the foreign community here was really supportive and helpful. So that was a really nice surprise when I got there.
Big thing out here, I think, for Westerners who are trying to start businesses, there really is a very supportive community of other foreigners doing the same things. I mean, we've received just pretty much nothing but positive encouragement and like an actual help, not just like offers for help, but like things that have really come through and been, fortunate for us. It's like a good community out here of other people.
So how did you get in touch with that community? What are some of the ways they supported you?
I mean, in terms of getting in touch with, I don't know, it just kind of happened. Like you meet people that
Like out of bars, in person, on Facebook?
all of the above. I'm gonna say mostly through just being out, and then through word of mouth through other friends, like friends of friends and friends of them, etc., and everything from, once again, like finding electricians and shops, friendly advice without being pushy in any way, like actual helpful advice on different ways to go about our build up and our whole concept. I mean, everything has been like really helpful. And then also coming by and supporting us as customers as well.
Nice. So let's talk about that. How's it been since the doors open? How long have you been open?
We've been open for 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
And it's been doing pretty well. We're quite happy about the crowd we get here. We're happy as well about what we offer and how the place turned out. So no, it's been great. It's the beginning, so it's always a little bit up and down. Sometimes it's very exciting, sometimes it's a little scary, but no complaint. It's been great.
Because everyone wants to know, in the end of the day, how much did it cost? How much does it cost to open a bar in Vietnam, to start your dream?
It can get really high, of course. It depends on the concept you have, but you can start a small restaurant with 40, 50,000 US. And it doesn't take, you could even do it for cheaper than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's say the bare minimum 35,000 and you can do something. You need to be careful, go things one step at a time. Asia is very typical in the sense that a meal can cost $1 or $200, $300. There's a very wide range of prices. Yeah. If you're looking for something simple, you can do it with not much.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like the interesting thing right there, is that full spread of dynamicism there. Like, it's really whatever you want to do. If you want to come in here and try to start something really cheap, like there's people doing that and it's accessible to do so. If you want to come in here and try to start like a really expensive, fancy restaurant bar, that's available. You can do that, Like you said, you can spend $1 on food or $200 on food. You can spend $10 a night, or you can spend $5,000 a night. There is something fully within that range, or everything in between. So as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. It depends on what you're trying to do, but there's a wide accessibility.
I'm thirsty. What's it cost to get a cocktail here?
Between 110 and 140.
$4 to $6, about, right? About $4 to $6 US. So for a beautiful cocktail by the beach.
Quite reasonable. Like overall, if you take all venues and stuff, it's gonna be between this range. It can go up to 220, 240 for a cocktail.
I like to wrap up with one last question, which is, I asked the people I'm interviewing on the cost of living abroad, what's the thing I didn't ask you? What's the question that you're waiting for me to ask, or that I should have asked, or I could ask my next guest? Because obviously we all make mistakes, whether we're moving abroad, whatever, opening a business. What can I ask next time? What should I have asked you?
Or maybe as a French person, we always grumpy and always negative. So that's why we could have explored as well the negative aspect of living here, what make it difficult, and sometimes a little bit, how do you say,
Frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I have whole lists of the most frustrating shit about living in Vietnam.
This interview been very positive. Good thing about.
Wow, I love it. Let's go dark at the end. So
Frustrating thing.
what is the most frustrating aspect of opening this business for you, Cyril, so far?
Dealing with banks. They can sometimes be a little narrow-minded and not aware of the law. You'd arrive I've got this funny story. My previous business, so every time on payday, I had to go to the bank with my work permit, my contract, my pay slip, so they could organize the transfer. I used to go to always the same bank, and one day I decided to go to a different bank. And when I arrived there, the girl looked at me and said, "No, sorry, I can't do that." I said, "Right." She said, "You're a foreigner." And I looked at her and I said, "But hold on a minute. This is my company. This is my contract. I work for them. I got the work permit. I got all the papers there." She said, "No, I'm sorry. I cannot do that."
And this is, keep in mind, you're talking about just going to a different branch of the same bank, of your bank, right?
And like right down the street. It's not like it's in a different town or part of the nation. It's
But
like
you really got to keep a relaxed attitude with this. You'll get this, how do you call that? A head bumper? Yes. You really need to stay chill and not get angry about things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's okay.
expect the unexpected for sure. It'll be like, it's weird the things like coming from California, I expect, the business license itself to be one of the most difficult things, long, painstaking, expensive, bureaucratic processes. And this is a nation known for its difficult bureaucracy. So I came here expecting that to just be the biggest process. It was simple, as straightforward as easy. We had somebody take care of it for us real quick. Meanwhile, finding these light bulbs, the Edison bulbs, that are dimmable in Da Nang, it took us longer than the business license to find a dimmable bulb.
Oh,
Because we're so used to being in places where there's just accessible, for better or worse, box stores that sell all these different things. And even in Saigon, it's pretty easy. But there's just little things you're not expecting, like this one little product you want to find. That one little thing that seems like should come really easy. And that's the thing that's going to be really difficult out here. But meanwhile, there's a bunch of other silver platters just being handed to you that are normally a very difficult and inconvenient thing in other places.
Yeah.
So open mind.
Thank you guys so much for coming on The Cost of Living Abroad. If you're heading abroad anytime soon or making the leap to Southeast Asia, use the link below pinned in the comments or at the top of the description, or just click and capture this QR code over my shoulder. Thanks so much for watching this week's episode of the Cost of Living Abroad pod, brought to you by Safety Wing Nomad Insurance. You can find more episodes of the pod over my shoulder, or check out thecostoflivingabroad.com right here.